Hello everyone. Welcome to another weekly forecast for the week of September 16th to the 22nd. I'm Ray, your astrologer, and we have a big week. Before we get into the eclipse and the forecasts, I have an announcement. If you or anyone you know has been wanting to learn more about astrology, then I may have a solution. I just finished creating my first ever ebook, and it's called What is Astrology? Foundations. And it's an introduction to astrology, its history, and its many uses. I made a historical timeline. I went over 6 different types of astrology, over 6 different types. I looked at the difference between the zodiac systems and the house systems. And there's a wonderful section that breaks down the basic parts of astrology charts. I'm currently selling it on my website, and I'll make sure that I have the link in the description. And as a special thank you to everyone listening, you can use promo code thank you. That's just like it sounds, thank you. And it'll take $5 off of the price. Additionally, I also made an abridged version, which is like a condensed, shorter version, and it has a little bit of the same stuff in it. And I made that available for free. And so if you're curious about it, you want to check it out, you can get the free one, see if it's something you would like, and if you enjoy it, get the full one. It's 40 pages long, so it's got a lot of good stuff in it. I've gotten really good feedback so far. Like long-time astrologers, people that have been studying for a while, have said that they were able to learn a few things that were new, and people that are just getting into astrology and just starting to study it have said that it was a lot of information, but it was not too overwhelming. And so I'm really excited about it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Check it out. Later in October, I'll be offering it as a class. I'll give you more details about that as it's available. So yeah, let's get into this week. Overall this week, remember what you've accepted as true. Our dynamics change and we need to give credit where it's due for both ourselves and others. And so eclipses make things, because we have an eclipse on Tuesday, eclipses make things very obvious. You can't hide from them. They don't need to do a lot of like introspection and reflection on it. It's something that will just show up. You can't ignore it. And that's kind of the nice thing about eclipses and also the kind of the tricky thing too. We'll get more into that when we get into Tuesday, but overall this week, just think about your sense of truth, the things that you're holding on to, the beliefs you're holding on to, and be flexible with them because your beliefs are supposed to change over time. You're not supposed to believe the same thing your entire life. I mean, maybe some beliefs shouldn't change, but as we grow and we learn, and just as the world changes too, our beliefs should change with it. And that's kind of the general overview for the month. First day we're going to talk about is Monday, September 16th. We're going to have the moon in Aquarius, square Uranus retrograding in Taurus, and then the moon is going to enter Pisces and make a trine to Mars in Cancer. We're also going to have Venus in Libra making an opposition to Chiron retrograding in Aries. And so for the 16th, naming and claiming your dreams is the first step. What do you know about yourself that could help you take the next steps? And so naming and claiming, a lot of things won't happen unless we decide that we want them to happen. A lot of things don't exist until we give it a name. And kind of what it brings to mind is how if you are having some kind of a spiritual experience with a spirit specifically, some otherworldly creature, if you know its name, then you're said to have power over it. And I think the same can be said about our feelings and about like our inner demons that are not literal like spiritual demons, but just things that we struggle with, things that give us a hard time. And yeah, we just got to be flexible with it. We want to give it a name and then claim it as part of ourselves so that we can process it because we can't be anyone other than ourselves. And if you are running from yourself because you don't like it, you'll have to come back eventually. And I think eclipses are a time to kind of come back to ourselves. That's it for Monday the 16th. Let's get into Tuesday the 17th. This is when we have our lunar eclipse in Pisces. It's going to be a full moon eclipse. It's going to make an opposition to Mercury in Virgo. It's going to be conjunct Saturn and square Jupiter in Gemini. And so allowing your dreams to become real requires some reorganizing. What could you move around to make space for what you want? That's kind of my general notes for Tuesday as a day, and I went back and I took additional notes for the eclipse specifically because eclipses are a big deal. They're things you can't avoid, and I wrote, growing out of your shell requires you to shed what you've outgrown and to replace it with a bigger container. The remarkable lies within the horror. What isn't working will show you what needs changed. It will be obvious what is not working. And I think people struggle with change because we have a very black and white mentality sometimes of like, well, if it's not this extreme, then it has to be that extreme. Or if we're already living in an extreme, then it's hard to imagine a world or a position where we're not in another extreme. And that's kind of what the goal of getting this balance is, and of making room and reorganizing your life for bigger things. Because if you are a little creature that has a shell and you outgrow it and you get bigger, you need a bigger shell. You need a bigger home. You need a bigger container for what you're experiencing as you grow. And so I think this has a lot to do with just containers, emotional containers, spiritual containers, containers for beliefs, and recognizing them and working with them and getting them to where they're right, to where they're a good fit. Because sometimes we are contained in a space that we are not meant to be in, that we are not able to grow in. And I think change is always kind of difficult, but allowing yourself more capacity for yourself to grow, you have to have that container for it in that space. And if you don't have it, then something needs to change so that you can make space for it. It feels very external. It doesn't feel like a very internal, go inside yourself and seek, reflect. No, it feels very change behavior is like the loudest thing you can say without saying anything. So we'll leave it for there for Tuesday, the 17th, and move on to Wednesday, the 18th. While the moon is in Pisces, it's going to make a sextile to Uranus retrograding in Taurus, a conjunction to Neptune, and a sextile to Pluto retrograding in Capricorn. Later in the day, it's going to enter Aries, make a conjunction to the North Node, and square Mars in Cancer. We're also going to have Mercury in Virgo making an opposition to Saturn retrograding in Pisces. Sometimes, getting what we want can feel disorienting, like we've woken up from a confusing dream. Get in your body today. There's a really strong message recently of just being present and being in your body, not being in your head. And your body has to be as safe of a place as your mind does. Both of them need to be safe places for you to reside in and process things in and accept things in. And I think if we ask for something and we get it, but we didn't really feel like we deserved it because we don't feel safe in our body or we don't feel safe in our mind, we we can struggle to receive it. And so, yeah, just don't see receiving or taking things as a bad thing. So many people see it as a negative thing, and it's not. You can take away someone's grief. You can, receive a message. You can receive care, you can receive love. And if you have a problem receiving and you have a problem taking, because those are on the same axis with each other, they're on the same, giving and taking, there won't be that flow. And you have to be able to take and you have to be able to give in order to have, a two-way relationship where you're benefiting from it and you're contributing to it as well. So get in your body today. Exercise, go on a walk, stretch, do yoga, whatever it is. Meditating for me gets me in my body, even though that is kind of like a mental spiritual thing. It does help me with my body. That's it for Wednesday, the 18th. Next, we're going to have Thursday, the 19th. On Thursday, we're going to have the Sun in Virgo making a trine to Uranus retrograding in Taurus, and the Moon in Aries will make a sextile to Jupiter in Gemini, a conjunction to Chiron retrograding in Aries, and an opposition to Venus in Libra. The magician can only cast spells that they know. Our body stores magic that comes alive when we know how to call it. And so this is why I said yesterday, get into your body. It's because your body has its own intelligence. It has its own way of thinking and processing things, and it responds to things without you telling it to. It breathes without you telling it to. Your heart beats without you telling it to. Your food digests without you actively working to break it down. And that's also why I was talking about naming and claiming yourself, is because you have to know who you are and where you come from in order to know what kind of magic you have, what kind of magic that you can use. And, maybe it's not literal magic. Maybe an example of a spell is you're really good at resumes and you can help someone with their resume. Because to someone that really struggles with it, it feels like magic. It feels like, oh my gosh, you just came in and waved your magic wand, and then now I have this cool thing that I can apply to jobs with. But you have to know how to call it. You have to know what it's called. And sometimes things don't have a name. Sometimes, spells or emotions or experiences don't have a name, and you just have to give it one. That's just as valid as something, learning about something and then saying that's what it's called. It's just as valid to say, this is what I'm going to call it, and this is what it's going to mean. And that is the sign of a magician. They transform things. That's it for Thursday, the 19th. Next, we have the 20th, Friday. We're going to have the moon in Aries for a little bit longer, making a square to Pluto retrograding in a Capricorn, and then it's going to enter the sign of Taurus and make a sextile to Mars in Cancer. Mars in Cancer is going to make an opposition to Ceres, the asteroid, in Capricorn, and the Sun in Virgo will make an opposition to Neptune retrograding in Pisces. So on this Friday, learn the difference between someone being condescending and simply offering care. Often the difference is just our own perspective. I remember one time in high school, I was reading a book about communicating, and it was communicating desires and needs, and it was saying that if the difference between telling someone to do something as an imperative, they have to do it, and asking them to do something as a question is not the words that we use, but the way that the other person feels about us. And that feeling is how they will interpret whether we are making a demand or a request. Because if you feel really good about someone, they ask you for something, even if they say, I really need this, I have to have it, it's going to feel like they're asking for it and like you are giving them something rather than they are taking something from you. And the difference there is our perspective of that other person, not the way they're asking us. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. That's going to be Friday the 20th. Next, we have Saturday the 21st. We're going to have Venus in Virgo making a square to Jupiter in Gemini, the Moon in Taurus making a sextile to Saturn retrograding in Pisces, and a trine to Mercury in Virgo. Growth and progress may not always be comfortable, but it should feel rewarding. What can you do to remind yourself of the value of your growth? People talk about growth a lot, but they often talk about it in the context of a consumer-driven productivity kind of culture. And I think it kind of dilutes and confuses what growth is, because growth is not just getting bigger. Growth is learning more. It is expanding your perspective. Growth is not always just, our business needs to grow and so we need to do more sales. Sometimes it's increasing the quality of those things. And increasing the quality of your life is a form of growth, even if you aren't adding anything to it, even if you aren't expanding literally, externally, internally expanding and growing. Yeah, it also involves a little bit of dying too. It sounds a little heavy, I guess, but I feel like part of growth, like I think of a flower, like especially one that will like bloom in a season and then it dies, and then the bulb underground will stay there, and then the next season and the next season comes, and then it comes back up. And I think part of growth is that some parts are meant to die, some petals are meant to fall off, some leaves are meant to wilt and fall, and there are supposed to be seasons where we are bare, where we are a tree with a bunch of branches and we're naked, and we're sturdy and we have this foundation, but nothing on on the top of it, on the surface looks any different. And it's important to remind yourself the value of your growth, not just that growth is important or that you're doing it because it's a good thing to do. You're doing it because it increases the quality of your life. That is, I think, a good marker of growth. And that's going to be it for Saturday, the 21st. Next, we have Sunday, the 22nd. We'll have the moon in Taurus making a conjunction to Uranus, a sextile to Neptune retrograding in Pisces, a trine to Pluto retrograding in Capricorn, and a trine to the sun in Virgo. It's then going to enter Gemini and make a sextile to the North Node in Aries. The Sun in Virgo will make a trine to Pluto retrograding in Capricorn. The Sun enters Libra. Venus enters Scorpio, and before it does, it makes a square to Pluto retrograding in Capricorn. Lots going on. But for the Sunday, the 22nd, your best effort isn't always going to be enough, and that's okay. Enough or too much are subjective. Be your own ally today. You can do the most for someone, you can do everything you possibly can, and they can still feel like it's not enough. Someone can do everything they possibly can for you, and it can still feel like you don't have enough. Our needs and our desires are very complex and they are very scattered at times. There are times where we really need different things from different places, and sometimes we go to one person or to one place expecting and desiring to fill all of these needs through this one funnel, but that doesn't work. If you're using a funnel, you have to do it slowly, incrementally. You can't just like pour a bucket of water on top of a funnel and expect it all to just spiral down. So don't worry about being too much. Don't worry about doing enough. You don't have anything to prove. Just do your best. Keep it that simple. And that's going to be it for Sunday, the 22nd. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Don't forget to go to my website, check out my new ebook, and stay safe, have fun, and I'll see you next week.